Hi, welcome to the Book Direct channel. My name's Steve. I'm the director of Direct Booking Partnerships, and it is good to be streaming live. Hopefully this is working. Hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully you're going to be able to see the slides that I'm about to present. So we're just a couple of minutes away from the start. We'll give a little bit of time for other people to join us. There was a separate link which was promoted for this stream, but the encoder that I'm using was not working with YouTube today for some reason that I can't identify. So I've set up this separate stream. And if you're here, you have found me correctly, which is fantastic. So today's presentation is going to be on The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. This is a fantastic book. It was recommended to me by a friend last year. My friend's name is Sam Harris. He's a podcaster. Check out the Growth Mindset podcast. Sam is a very, very intelligent thinker. He's a fabulous podcaster. He does some interesting interviews with some very interesting people. And he recommended this book to me, and I loved it so much that I prepared a presentation reviewing the book, which I presented at the Cycle Cities Symposium in Munich in February this year. All the partners there loved it. Most of the audience with the partnerships that I run are small business owners and small business operators. So this is something that is relevant to them, and it's something that should hopefully be relevant to you as well. If you're watching this channel, then perhaps you're running a small business. Perhaps you are either a manager or an owner or a director, and you want to know ways that you can help get more out of your time, to not be so tied up in the day-to-day things which are going wrong, and to be more involved in the things that you want to be involved in and living the life that you want to live. So we're going to get started on the book review very shortly. It's 1 minute to 4 in the UK, London time. And as soon as it ticks over 4 p.m., we are going to start, because I'm a timely guy. I like punctuality. Time is money, you know. Okay, it's 4 o'clock now, so I'm going to get started with the book review. It's 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. If you have read it, congratulations. If you have not, the next 20 minutes or so will be me giving a review, some of the key points from the book, and the most interesting things that I found, which might help you as well. I also want to credit Derek Sivers, who wrote the book Anything You Want. Derek is also a fantastic brain for business and entrepreneurship, but Derek really comes from a lifestyle perspective. You know, it's all about what excites him and what should excite you as well about running your own business. So credit to both Tim and Derek for this book review. The 4-Hour Workweek, sorry, let me just check this. Cool, yep, this is working. No worries. So the 4-Hour Workweek is based upon the premise of lifestyle design. When we think about our working lives, we often think in terms of retirement or the deferred life plan. Retirement being when we obviously have accrued enough money to start enjoying ourselves. But if we're not enjoying our work as we go through life, then I think that's a real shame. And this book talks about designing your lifestyle so you can take several mini retirements, so you can actually enjoy your life as you go. But we are busy people. This is most people's problem. It seems that perfection is attained, not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing more to remove. That's a quote by one of my favorite authors, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And I think it's a really relevant quote, particularly for those of us who really like to get involved in the details and even perfectionism, because I think the whole less is more thing is a lot. There's a lot in that for us to learn. And that quote by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry really, I think, brings that home. So I hope you like that quote as much as I do. I'm going to talk a little bit about what to remove from our workloads. You know, we're all familiar with the to-do list, but do you have a not to-do list? Are there things that you shouldn't be involved in, that you are, that are distracting you, that are stopping you from getting excited about the day that you really want to have? If you are a perfectionist, you must understand that doing something unimportant well does not make it important. If you get bogged down in perfecting every last minute detail of something that nobody's ever going to see, as an example, that's a waste of time. There are some things that very few people will see or appreciate or need. Getting involved in the precision of these tasks can also be a huge waste of time. You need to focus on what's important. Now, the 4Ds. At the Cycle Cities Symposium in 2016, I presented the concept of the 4Ds. Everything in your to-do list or in your inbox, really should be falling into one of these 4 categories: doing it, dumping it, delegating it, or deciding when to do it. So look at everything. Which category does it fall into? With minimizing, we are talking about what we dump and how we dump it. There's a principle that this book talks about when it comes to dumping things, and it's called the Pareto principle. On the x-axis there, we have Aufwand, which is effort, and we have Ergebnis, which is result. These are German words. And I presented this graph at the Cycle Cities Symposium in Munich, and we had some German speakers in the audience, so that's why I had the German translations there, and they helped us with the English translation, so that went well. But yeah, if you look at this graph here, you can see this kind of line which is going up, and then you get diminishing returns the further you go ahead towards the right. So what this graph is pretty much saying is that the first 20% of your time spent on a project will achieve 80% of the total result of that project. It can also be said in different ways. The 20% of all investors realize 80% of all stock market gains, for example. 80% of your profits probably come from 20% of your products. So when we understand the Pareto principle, it really helps us to understand the necessity of looking at what is our most valuable 20%. What can we really allocate our focus to? And what can we get rid of that is not really bringing that return? We need to identify and eliminate our inefficiencies whilst we identify and multiply our strengths. That's what the Pareto principle teaches us. So we've covered dump it. It's getting things off our to-do list. Delegation is incredibly important. And some of you may have tried delegation before, but you don't like it. And the amount of times I've heard somebody say, you know what, it's just easier if I do it myself. That's the only way I know it's going to get done. That kind of attitude and excuse is going to mean that you're a slave to your business for life. It's going to stop you from being an effective delegator. There are some tricks with delegation to make sure you don't fall into that trap of finding it easier to do it yourself. So a few principles from the book. You must eliminate before you delegate. Don't pay somebody to do something that doesn't need to be done. And if you start doing that, you'll stop pretty quickly. So it's a good way to find out what's unnecessary. You should never delegate a complicated system. If you've built a system yourself and you know this system intrinsically, you've got your own workarounds, you've got your own tweaks, and day to day you kind of keep it running and keep it moving. As soon as you delegate that system, you're going to be in big trouble, because when you delegate it, that person's not going to know those tweaks, and then the problems will amplify. They'll be exacerbated, and then your delegation project will be a complete failure. So don't delegate a complicated system. Simplify your systems. For example, you could delegate social media. You could say to somebody, right, run my social media. And they're like, okay, cool, I'll run your social media. But if you're not specific about what you want done, what are your benchmarks? What are you aiming to achieve? What channels are you using? Using Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram? What pages within these channels are you using? Are you using groups? Are you sharing posts in certain groups? Are you doing what? There's so many levels of detail. So if you actually write a specific checklist of what you need done on social with links to each page, you're going to be able to be much more focused. But not only that, you're going to be able to evaluate and verify what you have delegated, because the person that's being delegated to now has a checklist of specific things to do. And that checklist is great for them. It keeps them on track, and it's great for you because you can relate their performance against that checklist. So these are very important principles of delegation. And there are some golden rules for delegation. Each delegated task must be both time-consuming and well-defined. No point delegating something that doesn't cost you time, and also well-defined. As I've said, make sure the person that you are delegating to knows exactly what they are doing. Otherwise, you're going to run into cost problems and exacerbated problems with the systems. That covers delegation. That leaves us with two more Ds, do it and deciding when to do it. And I want to talk about Parkinson's law with this. Parkinson's law says that if you don't set a deadline, your time will be used up. The time that you allocate will be used up completely by the whole project. If you set a deadline of a week, that project's going to take you a week. If you set a deadline of 2 hours, that project's going to take you 2 hours. Parkinson's law helps us understand that if we don't set deadlines and if we don't hold ourselves accountable to those deadlines, we can waste a heck of a lot of time. So we get real productivity when we overlay the Pareto principle with Parkinson's law. So the Pareto principle says, that's the 80-20 rule. That says that the first 20% of your time will deliver 80% of your results. If there's 5 days in a week, 40 hours, the first 20% is 8 hours. So you can automatically reduce your workload down to that first day, really condense that to the most important tasks. Now, if you then overlay the Parkinson's law, you can take a 8 hours worth of work and reduce it to, say, 4 hours. So that's an example of how you might achieve a 4-hour work week. So by combining these principles, you're going to get some seriously incredible productivity coming through. A few ideas. This is from my daily routine, and a lot of this I learned from the book as well, so it's out of the book really. But what I like to do is the night before, as I go to bed, I like to identify 2 mission critical items for the next day. I like to write down, these are the 2 tasks that are most important for me to achieve tomorrow. And then I'll set aside 2 hours in the morning, usually between 10 a.m. and midday, to achieve those. One of them will be from 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. and the second will be from 11 a.m. till midday. And do not check my email in the morning. Email is full of distractions. It's best to save email until later in the day, preferably afternoon. Don't multitask. Multitasking is not good for the brain. If there are things on your to-do list that have been there for way too long, maybe you've started them and then because you've been interrupted or you're multitasking, you've never gone back to them. Multitasking is not good. Warn your staff or your loved ones that you'll be unavailable between the hours of 10 and midday or whenever. Basically say, right, this is my time when I will be working on a certain task that is most important for my productivity. So please try not to bother me within these times. If you pre-warn them, then the chances that you will be bothered and distracted decrease a lot. Also set time limits. You should definitely set the time limits on these tasks. Like I said, I set an hour for these 2 tasks each. And I stick to these time limits as well. If I know I've got 10 minutes left to finish something, that last 10 minutes is going to be an incredibly productive time. And even if I don't get it finished, I will stop and I will move to the next one, because it's the principle of the discipline which keeps you on track. We always constantly need to be looking at the big picture, what we're doing with our time, what is the most important, what are our biggest strengths, and not getting lost in the detail. We should always be keeping an eye on the clock and always keeping an eye on our priorities. It takes us away, it helps us to see from an outside perspective, and it's a really, really important thing to do. There's a few more practical tips here. If you're answering an email, use if-then scenarios. For example, if you get an email that somebody says at your work said the toilet's blocked, simply you could go, well, buy some drain cleaner. Or what might be better is to instruct them, give them the authority to make further decisions. So you could go, buy some drain cleaner. If that doesn't work, then call a plumber. If the plumber's quote is less than £250, then go for it. If not, then call another plumber. And you're giving the authority for someone to go ahead and not to contact you anymore. So think about the if-then scenarios, putting them together to delegate more authority to people that are working for you. Answering phone calls. A good way to answer the phone is to pick up and go, I'm in the middle of something at the moment. Can you make it quick? It encourages people to get to the point really quickly. And if they say, oh, listen, can I call you back later when it's a more convenient time? Don't say yes. That's not what you want. That's not the point. The point is you want them to be concise. So you just go, no, just give it to me quickly now. Respond to voicemail with email. Obviously, words we can get quite discussive. So email can be good at being quite concise. And obviously, if you're in a meeting or on a phone call, then you should always define the agenda and use Parkinson's law to set a time limit. In the tourism business, which is what direct booking partnerships is very much involved in, we know a lot about customer service. Our business is built around pleasing people. So this is the kind of language I speak. Absolutely everything we do is for our customers. When we know that as business owners, and when we successfully get that idea into the heads of every employee, then we are now using a principle to make decisions upon. For example, you might give your staff a $50 budget to make an unhappy customer happy. They don't have to consult you. They don't have to say, right, this customer's complained. How do I fix this? There's no back and forth. You basically say, right, your budget is $50 whenever a customer is unhappy. If you feel you need to spend, you can spend up to that amount to make that customer happy. And some of you feel like, oh my God, that's really scary. What if they make a mistake with that money? That's okay. At the end of the week, look at each decision that was made, look at how much that money was spent, look at where that money was spent, and look at the result. And then you can make adjustments. You can review those decisions. You can go to your employees, that was a good use of the money. That was a bad use of the money. So what you're doing is you're building a system to replace yourself. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to be in a situation where you can give the authority to other people to make decisions in your absence while still maintaining control over how your business is run. Are you a boss or are you an owner? Do you own a situation or do you boss a situation? As business owners, it's actually not helpful at all for us to be focused in on one particular corner of our business and ignoring the other areas. We're not owning our business in that regard. We're just bossing a certain section of it or a subsection of it. So you need to think like an owner, and you need to have your eye on a few different areas as opposed to being constantly bossing or directing a specific function. So the intentional absence of an owner creates him a process-driven business instead of a founder-driven business. We're talking about getting away from the office here. We're talking about making yourself disposable. If you remove yourself as an information bottleneck and you effectively delegate and follow up, checking performance, batching tasks together so that you can look at them once per week instead of every day, you're going to remove yourself as an information bottleneck, and you're going to free yourself to go and do what you really want to do, focus on what you really need to focus on. Some of you might go, well, I don't really want to get away. I love my business. And a lot of business owners are like that. They are so impassioned by what they have built. The business is the baby, it's the passion, it's what I love, and they'll work, 60, 70-hour weeks because of it, even more. And I think it's good to ask yourself a question. I'm going to close on this because we're getting a little bit, it's conversational, I suppose, about the principles of why we even worry about this. But what are your goals? Are you looking to create a business with 1,000 employees? Are you looking to have $10 million in the bank? And I want to take that a step further, because if you come up with goals like that, then maybe you need to drill down a bit more and go, why do I want $10 million? Or why do I want to own a business with 1,000 people working for it? Do these things actually excite me, or does what that delivers actually excite me? Is it how I spend that $10 million which excites me? Is it if I own a business, for example, and there's 1,000 people working for me? Maybe the only thing that I love about that is the respect that I get. Does it really need a business where 1,000 people are under you for you to earn respect? Do you really need $10 million to achieve what you really set out to achieve? I mean, maybe with that 10 million, you go, oh, okay, I want to travel. Great, we're getting somewhere. Travel excites me. But what is it about travel that excites you? Go a step further. Well, I love traveling because I love meeting new people from different cultures. Great, cool. That's what excites you. Does it really take travel to meet people from different cultures? Does it really take $10 million to meet people from different cultures? Maybe what excites you is watching your daughter grow up, or being with your family and having a happy family. Does it really take a lot of money to have that, or is it your time that they need? These are examples to really focus in. Don't have these ideas or these goals which just follow the standard way of thinking. Setting these goals in this context of finances or size. But think about what really, really excites you, because ultimately you have to be happy every day. And if you're not enjoying the process, then you are deferring your life, and you are going to wait until 65 or 70 when you're presumably going to start enjoying yourself. And that's no way to live life. So if you really focus in on what excites you, and make sure that every decision that you make is geared towards building in that direction and achieving more excitement in your own life, that's going to give you great motivation and great focus as well. So that's the end of my very, very brief presentation of the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Hopefully I'll be seeing you on a beach somewhere in the future, chilling out, not working too hard. But, working excites me as well. So we'll try and get a good balance. I'll switch back to this screen now. And cool, this is working well. I've finally mastering the live video thing. I'm using a plugin called Lightstream, but it's having issues with connecting to scheduled YouTube videos for some reason, which I can't quite work out. However, we are back with more videos on this channel, the Book Direct channel, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more things coming through. It's going to be stuff which is useful for small business owners. We're going to be talking a lot about the Book Direct mission, about how to encourage customers and the general public to book direct, and how to educate business owners about what they can be doing to attracting more direct bookings. So we're specifically focusing on the tours and activities sector, but we're also very happy to hear from people in the accommodations industry, hotels, hostels, motels, B&Bs. You guys have been doing this a lot longer than the tours and activity people have, so you've got some great tips which we could really use as well. So yeah, there'll be a whole lot of content on this channel. Please subscribe, and I look forward to catching up with you in a future video or webinar. Thanks guys, have a great day.